Peace and love, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brother Garfield, 20 for 20, number 13, Word of Sumerians, Black Part 2, with my brother Chuck Morgan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember Part 1, it was some serious research as far as the Sumerians are concerned. But before we move forward, let me introduce everybody to the man of the hour, Mr. Chuck Morgan. How you doing
Hey,
today?
hey, what's happening, brother? How's everything?
All right, let's get right into it, man. You're gonna
All
you're
right.
gonna dig deeper than the last time, so I'm definitely back here taking notes. And if anybody wants to ask questions, right at the end, you could jump on and ask a question, or if you want to ask from the audience, and I'll just pin it on the screen your question. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you my brother Chuck Morgan. Peace and love.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it. Well, welcome everyone. This is going to be a second installment of my little Were the Sumerians Black. Technically, this is a part three. The second one was much more lengthy. Um, it kind of was in response to some of my critics. So I just wanted to put that one in the back burner just in case I have to pull it out. Um, but this one is it brings it together. It's just some more up to date information that I was able to collect, and I just wanted to share this with the audience. And I want to thank you, Garfield, for allowing me to come on and share my little bit of research with your audience, and it should make for a great dialogue.
All
All
right,
right,
no
so
doubt,
let me
no doubt, brother, no doubt.
get ready to share this thing. How are we gonna do this? Windows. Okay, so let us begin. Right. All right. Here we go. So here we go. So the Sumerians, Unsangiga, erroneously called the Blackheads. So this is going to be just a little, some information. This one out. Sorry, Lord. Yeah, just a little bit of information on this, and we'll begin right now. The purpose of this presentation is simple: to bring some clarity, context, and chronology, and the most up to date information regarding Unsagiga, better known as the Black Headed People. This name, Blackheads, is currently used by the misinformed as evidence or as an implication that the ancient people called Sumerians saw or referred to themselves as Black people. The Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations to utilize a writing system and possibly the first to document their day to day society from administration inscriptions, hymns, mythological compositions featuring gods, lamentations, poems, laws, to work receipts, to creation epics. Literally hundreds of thousands of Sumerian cuneiform inscriptions have been discovered, translated, and available for study. Now, um, their cuneiform writing system was adopted by nearly all the peoples in the region, from Akkadian, Hittite, Amorite, Assyrians, and so forth. What's interesting about that is when even dealing with this stuff, one would have to get some kind of background or at least familiarize themselves with the Sumerian language. This text here is was a foundation text that was commissioned by Gudea. Um, in a briefly opening, I wanted to point something out because people see these things and just want to give some kind of context or some clarity to it. So we see this first symbol here, or this inscription, is what's known as a dingir. A dingir. It's one syllable, and it's usually in reference to the sky, a deity, and is also used as a syllable um, for pronouncing a person's name. So in this case is used as a a determinative, which is not pronounced, as this determinative is what follows it. Would be a deity and or god. So we have this, which is nin. Now, usually nin is a term that was used to identify a woman or a lady. But in this case, it's for pronunciation purposes. And this would be a particular deity which was popular in Lagash, which is Ningirsu or Ningirzu. Ningirsu. And he was Sang or Sang Kalaga, which is a mighty hero, a mighty man, a hero, a warrior. And then again, we have Dingir here, and that deity to follow is what many people know as Enlil or Enlil La in this case. Okay. And this term underneath this next line, Lugal, this is with reference to a king. Lugal Ani is the third person singular possessive. And this person who's taking this, making this declaration is underneath, which is one of my favorite Sumerian rulers or kings, which is Gudea. Gudea. One of the first words I even was able to memorize was the "ah" here because that represented water. Well, let me turn my phone down. Okay, and he was a patesi, patesi, which is an NC or just a ruler. In some texts, he'll regard himself as a lugal, but in this case, because he was such a humble king or ruler, he referred to himself as just that, an NC. And underneath here, we have what he ruled as, which was this location, Shir Burla, Ki K or K4. Now, Shibboleth is a dairy compound, which is some when you get into Sumerian studies in grammar, you'll learn about dairy compounds, which in short is just two or more cuneiform signs joined to form a single reading, which in this case is Lagash, Lagash, and we know it to be a toponym or city, or a toponym is a place, because we have this sign here. Oops, we have this sign here, key. The key here, and K4 here, it gets into more of the grammar, which is how it absorbs the genitive, and it becomes because of the key in key, it then takes on a new form, which marks the ending of a sentence or statement. But I just wanted to give some kind of background on what some of these texts that you see, because there were literally hundreds of thousands of these clay cone and other tablets that were unearthed, and we find in museums all around the world today. So the word Sumerian is derived from the Akkadian term Shumeru or Shemeri, meaning the southern land. The person to coin the term Sumerians is attributed to a linguist named Jules Obert, who in 1869, he was the one who decided to call the newly discovered language that was emerging the wedge-shaped writing, which was Sumerian. So you can attribute this person for when we use the term Sumerian, you'll find he was the one who brought it to our forefront. He did this by reading an Akkadian inscription, Sharmat Shemeri U Akkadi, translated as King of Sumer and Akkad. The bilingual text showed that the Sumerian version of this inscription read Lugal Kiengi Ori Kiengi Ki Ori or K4. But because Sumerian was so poorly known back then or understood, it was decided to just keep the name, the Akkadian form of it, which was Sumeru. And thus Sumerian became the name of the new language. So let's establish, for the sake of clarity, the definition for black. The online etymological or etymology dictionary gives us some background. I don't think I have to read the whole thing, just to give you the basics of it being Old English, black, absolutely dark, absorbing all light, of the color of soot or coal, from Proto Germanic, black eyes, burned. You have to go on all the more European definitions for the most part, but universally, all of them identified with something and or dark black. And then, of course, when you get into the latter portion, you got Old English, the color black, also ink from the noun black. It is attested from the late 14th century as dark spot in the pupil of the eye, meaning dark skinned person. African is from the 1620s, perhaps as late as the 13th century. Blackamoor, 1540s, etc. I think you get the idea. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language have black or blacker, blackest as being of the color black, producing or reflecting comparatively little light and having no predominant hue, having little or no light, a black moonless night, of or belonging to a racial group having brown to black skin, especially one of African origin, the black population of South Africa, of or belonging to an American ethnic group descended from African peoples having dark skin, African American, very dark in color, etc., etc. Clearly, the American definition of this word is just that, an American definition. The definition from the Sumerians and Akkadians, their perspectives differ slightly, meaning black was never used as part of a racial description or ethnic grouping. In Sumerian literature, there are several examples related to the color black. However, nothing that would indicate the Sumerians as being black in color or as black people. You can consult the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, the CDLI, BDT&S, which is the database of Neo-Sumerian texts, and scrutinize every reference to black, and nowhere will you find any text making that connection. There are specific terms for black, gig. You have babar, which is white. You have red, which is Sioux. And then there's a word dara, which is used for the color of blood or reddish blood. And then, of course, sig, which is like a yellowish green. And while blue and green, which it included the color of the sky and plants, was anisig. And even with the lapis, they use that. You usually find that in the eyes of various figurines, which was just used as a adoration for the sky. Those general explanations of the black or black are clear. However, there doesn't appear to represent any known peoples of Sumer. Now, to be fair, in this, the latter periods of Mesopotamia, black people were certainly known. The Assyrians of Mesopotamia had a vivid description of the people of Cush. And as a description, you can't find that in reference to the Sumerians, but they did make that reference to the people, at least going to the time of what was his name? Oh my God, I can't remember. I don't think I put his name down here. But in the text of that period, it makes reference to, um, uh, I think this was Taharka, yeah, because there was a war going on between the Assyrians and the people of Kerma, or the people of Cush. And he makes reference to his wives, his sons, and his daughters, whose bodies was like his bodies like his, have skin as black as asphalt. And you can find this in a text or in a book by Assyriologist W.G. Lambert, Booty from Egypt. It's a very informative publication. It has a lot of information in there in this related topic. Now, some have speculated that this word sangiga, blackhead, was in reference to hair on the head. And in the previous PowerPoint, I made that vividly clear. Because that was a more of an outdated idea because we don't find real, any tangible visual evidence of the Sumerians having people with dark hair. Now, you will find, say, in this case with this individual here, you'll have what they have a word sikipa, which is the literal term that was used for hair on the head. And you'll find that in multiple texts. We have one here from in Old Babylonian text. Um, from the standard of oral, we just don't find this as being the dominant theme in uh, Sumerian artworks or anything in reference to how they describe their leaders, peoples, or deities. So this is a photo of what's called a black-headed seagull. Now, what stands out here is the obvious. It's the color of his head or nape, which is black, dark gray. And we can clearly recognize and differentiate the color. Now, the crown on top, the nape, and then the back, also key parts of the head that can help identify the bird, and both black and white. So I'm leading up to a point. So when you just look at this, you'll say, okay, black headed, got it. And then we have this brown-headed cowbird, and as with the previous example, the name places the focus on the obvious, the brown head, and I think that's pretty self-explanatory. American actress Lucille Ball was well known as a redhead. Yet she is clearly not of a red-bodied people. Each of these three adjectives only describes the color of their hair, the bird's nape. So the question should be, if that's the color of their head or hair, then what color was the bodies of the Sumerians? And unfortunately, the Sumerians do not supply us an answer. Nevertheless, claiming that they were black people would be fallacious. Although the Sumerians do not inform us of what their skin color was, they do, however, offer substantial insight with their vivid iconography, emphasizing key details of their phenotypical features. The prevailing elephant in the room that Black Sumerian theorists tend to ignore is the noticeable monobrow. It is not an outstanding feature that's in African artworks and not a significant depiction that's found in really much of any artwork around the world. But this is an obvious feature amongst the Sumerians, and is emphasized, and even have text that talks about the significance of the monobrow. This is Gudea, just giving you some visuals. The Sumerian term for monobrow or carved eyebrow is what we said, sig igi, or 6-7 igi, normalized as si igi, eyebrow, arch carved eyebrow for statues, etc. So you can find information on this at the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature in the building of Ngirsu's temple, Gudea cylinders A and B. And it just talks about how the Inimu stands among rumbling, roaring storms. Its awe-inspiring eyebrow-shaped arch meets the admiring eyes of the gods. It's not only a genetic trait, moreover, it was a staple of style, beauty, and status, not only in places like Iraq, but also in modern Arabia, Tajikistan, India, and even Mexico. In the Sumerian inscription informs us that the brow is a sacred gift from Enlil. Enlil gave you your fierce face and your serious brow, and we see the word there. And that's in the Babel of Enana. Now, there are numerous statues and carvings of Sumerian kings and others. None of them are depicted as having black heads. exclusively black heads. In doing the rigorous research on this topic, one must ask, why are there no visual examples, representations of Sumerian people being depicted as having black heads only? It's a valid question against the arguments of a literal interpretation of black headed, which again, to this date, not a single example has been excavated in support of the name. By that I mean just finding one head and then a different colored body. Nowhere in the entire corpus of Sumerian literature do we find mention of the Sumerians, ruling class or otherwise, as being black. Therefore, it's illogical to conclude, based on the 2023 interpretation of black, that this Bronze Age society would refer to themselves as such, singling out just their heads as black rather than the more substantive term for the entire body or persons being black. And even if it did mean black skinned person, it didn't necessarily guarantee that it was Africans, blacks, or people that we generally regard as black people. Mhm. Around 2030 BCE, a Sumerian ruler in Uruk was successful in a campaign to remove the Gutian king Tirigan, sending he and his family back to the Zagros Mountains. Now, this would be the first time since Lugal Zaghazi brought Sumerian rule back to Sumer. Where it is, by the envoys of Utu Utu Hagal, Tirigan and his wife and children in Dabron were captured. They placed fetters on his hands and put a blindfold over his eyes. Utu Hagal, therefore, Utu made him lie at his feet, and on his neck he set his foot. Gutium, the fanged snake of the mountain ranges, he made drink from the cracks of the earth. He brought back the kingship to Sumer. This is the victory steel stela of Utu Hengal. This would also begin Dynasty 3 of Sumer and what's called the Renaissance. And this restored the pride and glory of the Sumerian kings and people. And it's worth noting, pointed out, that one king, Lugal Sulgi, had such pride in being a Sumerian or being of Sumerian origin and birth that in an inscription, and a couple of other ones he had, in one called the A Praise Poem of Shulgi, Shulgi B, he stated the following: By origin, I am a son of Sumer. I am a warrior of Sumer. Thirdly, I can conduct I can conduct a conversation with a man from the Black Mountains. Fourthly, I can do service as a translator with a man from Martu, Amorites, a man from the mountains. I myself can correct his confused words in his own language. Praise poem of Shulgi, Shulgi B. So he took great pride in being what he was, which that this was a born Sumerian. So you're looking at their depiction in this foundation foundational pick where they give a pretty accurate visual of what this person Shulgi looked like, the king. And then to the left, okay, yeah, this leaves no, this left no doubts that Shulgi and his Sumerian pedigree made it clear that from the people of the Guti as well as the Akkadians who were there, this was what we know as a Sumerian. And so, yeah, this is from the British Museum, the cylinder seal of the Akkadian, post-Akkadian, or three period, and the museum number is for this particular cylinder seal is 89131. If you want to pull that up, so I just gave you kind of a close up on it, give you an idea of his features. Yeah. Okay, now his is from a brother that I have great respect for now. Had a wonderful dialogue with him on Garfield's channel, and I wanted to quote him because it's going to segue into this next segment of the presentation. He said, I think they know who they are. And I know that we sound crazy telling them that they are something other than what they themselves depicted themselves as. We sound crazy. This is my brother Zion Lex on the Killer Priest Show on YouTube back in March of 2022. And an example of how the early Sumerians depicted themselves can be found in the British Museum. Now, left is from the plaque of King Akhenaten the first, around 2405, Dynasty 3. He is depicted bald with an aquiline nose, bare chested, wearing a kaunikes, featured kilt of his ancestors, Ernansi, a Korgal, Aenatum, and you'll usually see the kaunikes kilt of the Sumerians throughout their iconography. So, just to give you a pretty good idea of how they saw themselves and wanted themselves to be seen to the world. Okay. And below is Ernansi, ruler of Lagash, early dynasty one. And this is in the Louvre Museum in France. Yeah, there's his sons and yeah, well, right here. Just give me an idea that that's again. Here's a furniture inlay of Ernansi. This is in Girsu, Tello. This is where you can find it at 4109 in the Louvre Museum, Department of Oriental Antiquities. There you go. On the right, we have Aenatum, Dynasty 1 of Lagash. Also, and this is from the Stella of the Vultures, where you see he have on the war helmet. And well, if you look at the whole, you can pull this whole scene up, and you can see that it's a war a memorial in the battle that he participated in because he was known as a great warrior and conqueror. Okay. In the interest of clarity, there's also an online bogus claim from a 4,000. And I wanted to pull this up because I remember years ago in some of the social media groups that I was in, I would hear people would always pull this up. And I honestly, I was like, where are they getting this from? And I looked and looked and looked, couldn't find it. So I had to get some professional help on this. So, if whenever you pull this slide up again, you pull up the video, you'll be able to go to it. I have the sources on where it can be found and why we know it's to be bogus to where it says that 4,000-year-old inscription by a Sumerian Ludingir Ra. We migrated to where we are living now thousands of years ago, but they were unable to write down from where because they did not know how to write then. Later on, inquisitive scribes and activists and archivists in the royal palace studied the orally transmitted information in an attempt to find out about the past. Our people came to this land from a mountainous country to the northeast. But it is also said that some of them had come via sea from a land called Dilmun in the east. And the reason behind this migration is said to be the onset of an unexplained drought in their warm and rainy country. Great Enlil had some of us darkheads settled here. According to rumors of the results of my research as to why we have called ourselves darkheads, I found out that before our forefathers migrated here, blonde haired and blue eyed people were living next to their country. I cannot visualize a person with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I don't think it would be nice. I have not seen any person like that in my country. Now, this is from this is the title 4,000-year-old inscription by Sumerian Ludingir Ra. The problem with that is here's the text that's attributed to Lu Dingira. The above quote has been used for years by advocates of the Black Sumerians ideology for years online. However, when you take the time to research it, you'll find that it is fallacious, having claimed to have been written by a Sumerian. Now, Lugal Dingera was a Sumerian nobleman and poet in Nippur who dedicated a love poem to his mother and two eulogies to his father and his wife. The eulogies, which he glorifies his mother, has been compared to the songs of Solomon. Lugal Dingera's poem honors his mother. He wrote nothing about blue eye, blonde, yellow hair, or anything like that. So, yeah, that this too it would be considered a pseudo or even a fake uh, English translation because we found no reference to that at all. For more information, you can find message of Lou Dingera to his mother and a group of Akkadian Hittite proverbs. Journal of Near Eastern Studies, 23, 1964, translated under Miguel Sibyl. And I'm gonna pause this for like about 5 seconds because I can't put it in the chat, but if you see, all you have to do is just pull this up and do your own research on it, and you'll clearly see that nowhere does it make any reference to what we had just read. And so it's all there. So the whole thing is there. So yeah. It is only in modern scholarship that a Sumerian people were designated according to definitions of race and ethnicity. The lives of Sumerian sculpture and an archaeology of the early dynastic temple by Gene M. Evans. And Gene's words rings true because it's now the modern 1980s, pretty much, that the racial interpretations by urban opportunists to make the Sumerians as part of some racial class black in this case, is solely based on the three words in English, the black headed people. Hence the need for clarity and proper context. Now, um, you have Thorklid Jacobson, who wrote an important article reviewing the evidence for the Sumerian Semitic conflict in the third millennium BCE and in their texts. And dismissing any notions of a racially constructed warfare, he concluded that the ancient conflicts instead were based on political and territorial factors and not race. Where he says that there was a virtual uh, unanimity about what had shaped early Mesopotamian history. It was race, Sumerians fighting Semites. Races differed in physique and in character. So, cranial measurements, shapes of noses, and even bearded or beardless were matters of the moment. It was not until 1937, 1938 that in Chicago, I found, rather to my surprise, that there was no such evidence, and so presumably no such racial conflict. This is on Thorkley Jacobson's Searching for Sumer and Akkad in Civilizations of the Ancient Near East, 1995. You can pull that up. Very informative. On that racial note, what's interesting is there's a text called Enki and the World Order, and in line 332, the word blackhead here, sang, and the verb in this case, you can see the verb here is giga because the gig two and ga to be black, meaning to literally indicate that the head is to become black. And that's a literal translation. So again, I says again, being that we do not have a Sumerian depiction of their heads as having hair on their heads, or even having the bodies of some other color, it stands to reason that this term holds some different meaning. For clarity, the word used for humanity, as found textually, was Nam Lulu. Nam Lulu or Nam Lu 2, Lu 7. A word found in five different texts from the early dynastic 3 period, B, 13 times in or 3 period, 187 times in the Old Babylonian, once in Middle Babylonian, 12 times in Neo Assyrian, and once in Neo Babylonian texts. Sangiga comes in later after Namlulu. Namlulu. We can see that its earliest attestation as Sangig once in the Earth 3 period. Then it's used 46 times during the Old Babylonian period, once in the Middle Assyrian period, 3 times in the Middle Babylonian, 5 texts for the Neo Assyrian, and once in the Neo Babylonian period. We can consult its entry in the electronic text corp. I'm sorry, the electronic Sumerian Pennsylvania Dictionary, the EPSD, the second one, which is the most up to date and current. The top of the page will give you a list of all the known spelling, syllabic, logographic for the word in question, followed by a quick graph showing what time periods each was used during that. Clicking each would of that period will bring you a hyperlink, which opens a menu of the text. Clicking the name of each text will take you to an available transliteration and translation. And there's often identifying information here as well, such as time periods, provinces where the tablet was recovered, and important names mentioned. So there's absolutely no way you can come up short on trying to get down to the essence of various texts, what period they were excavated, and even what's contained on the text, because literally thousands and thousands of these texts are accessible now for review. And anyone who studies ancient Mesopotamia or in particular Sumerian literature, this is the place to go if you're going to go into that field of study. So the Electronic Text Corpus of Sumerian Literature is an excellent source. The uh, the data of Neo-Assyrian text, that's another equally powerful set of hundreds and hundreds of texts. And you can just tap in a word and you get a word search on whatever text you're looking for. So I like it because the brother Smash Rockwell, who uses the TLA, I think it's called, for and for the Metunetter, and I like that because this is pretty much like similar to where you can just pull up periods, and so you have kind of an advantage of somebody that's just throwing out words without giving you any context or time periods. So just giving you an idea where you have Sangiga, which is humankind, and you see the various periods here. You can see the spelling or the inscription. See? So I'm just giving you, and this is from the digital corpus of cuneiform lexical text. So you can use this is another one, but this is for that really you want to get down to the essence and get down to the nitty gritty of the grammar and trying to find key words, just keywords. So you'll this will dispel or eliminate any misinformation that some people may want to use to say, oh, it means this, it means that, without giving you any source of a text, what line of a text and what it means. So it's important to note the Sumerians never gave a real definition of human beings. Instead, they described human activities and his place in the world order. After the first creation phase, man behaves like a beast. Only in the second phase does he get the instruments for the establishment of culture, and ultimately he becomes human by a gift of the gods. Sangig is attested in the earliest inscription from a royal inscription written during the reign of Lugal Susan Shusen, the fourth king of the Ur-3 period, and the son of Lugal Shulgi. And again, he represents the earliest known use of the word right now. Now, we may discover down the road when some other tablets are translated that, it may be something earlier, but as it stands right now, this is the earliest reference to it. So you're not going to be able to go back. to one, when you do the Ubaid period, or in those periods, and find that word or that description. Shushan royal inscription, you can see it here. Would even use it at head of livings, living things. The EPSD, Electronic Pennsylvania Sumerian Dictionary too, and as well as Oric. And you can also find this in the Seal Cylinders of Western Asia by William Hayes. Very good book. It has, I think, all of the cylinder seals and their translations. And the second attestation of Sangiga can be found in the Old Babylonian royal inscription, and where we see an innovation in the overall spelling, Sangiga. The general term for people, humans, which you have is and Amiditana was king of Babylon who reigned from 1683 to the 1640s. Um, the old Babylonian Empire, going back to this date, comes after the end of the Sumerian power with the destruction of Ur III during their period and the subsequent uh, Insin Larsa period. So, of course, in the grammar, Sangiga or Sangiga K4 is a genitive marker at the end of a word which focuses, the functions as the active agent of. That's what the K4 indicates in the sentence. It's there specifically for grammatical purposes, not usually pronounced. That's why I have it kind of in a faded position there. This is again Sangiga. Humankind. The Earth 3 period is during the Sumerian Renaissance period after the Akkadians and the Guti occupation. Not prior to the early dynastic 3 or 2 in the early dynastic period, as Black Sumerian advocates would have you to believe. You have the Earth 3 period, Old Babylonian, Middle Assyrian, Middle Babylonian, Neo Assyrian, Neo Babylonian. Yeah, references to all phases, giving you an idea. Here's another example of the word Sangiga or Sangigiga found during other periods. Of course, here we have the Old Babylonians, listen, Larsa. Here's some of the periods text. And these are the texts. If you go to if you go to the electronic Pennsylvania Sumerian dictionary and you hit these links, you'll be able to pull up the text itself. You'll see the transliteration, and well, many of them are not translated, but at least you have the transliteration where you can do a follow up and do a word search, depending on what software you might use, and you'll be able to pull up word for word and develop a translation. Or you can just learn the language. All right, so here's another one. All right. So the Akkadians used a term that we know because of the dual dictionaries that they had developed. You have Zamat Kakali, which is blackhead, which is translated as human or human people or humanity for the most part. The history, of course, is how it's pronounced. In Akkadian, I'm just on the very early stages of having to learn Akkadian, a Semitic language. But this is the same use of it that we find in Sumerian because they derive this word Zamat Kakali from the Sumerian. That's where you have it is. So the cuneiform sign is pronounced as in sing. Like so when you say sangiga, it's like sing, like It's almost nasal, I guess, like And this is a better visual of it. So it's interesting to note when discussing the Sumerian people and language, when it came to humanity, the Akkadians offered a window into the way the Sumerians saw humanity. The expression Zamat Kakadi, an Akkadian word, is a poetic term referring to mankind as a totality created by the gods and kept in a safe pastures by the kings, because the kings were like shepherds. The literal meaning likewise poses a problem because the reference to black hair is without any parallel in Akkadian. This you can go to the Assyrian Dictionary of the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago, page 76. That whole volume, that whole series, which took about 70 years to compile and complete, is open to the public. You can just go right to the site and download it. This can be seen also in the Code of Hammurabi, where it talks about it there. This is in the Code of Hammurabi, the prologue, um, G3, lines 27 through 49, and it just gets down to the point. I just kind of narrowed it down. It was then that Anu and Enlil ordained Hammurabi, a devout prince who fears the gods, to demonstrate justice within the land, to destroy evil and wickedness, to stop the mighty exploiting the weak, to rise like Shamash over the mass of humanity. And that humanity here, you go to it, is Zamat Kakalim, illuminating the land. Anu and Enlil ordained me to improve the welfare of my people. The Code of Hammurabi. Now, to further illustrate how this blackhead term may have been used, but in other societies, you can read the works of a linguist by the name of Dr. Nathan W. Hill of Trinity College in Dublin. He specializes in Tibetan language, demonstrated that this same term, black headed, shares a similar view of people, specifically men, come as Lord of the Black Headed in Old Tibetan myth formula. This term was used in reference to a class of people, the black headed of the passage quoted. So far, it is only in the Old Tibetan Chronicle and much later royal. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm. This is the only part about this part of the presentation that it gets into some Asian languages that I'm not familiar with. So I'll let you read along, and I'll try to stick with the English. That the divine leader comes as Lord of the Blackheads rather than of men. The context immediately suggests that black-headed is an epithet for men. Several passages in the Old Tibetan text corroborate this meaning. In the Donghang, if I'm pronouncing it right, document PT 0126, the envoy of Faiwa to, I can't pronounce, messengers, because I don't want to make it, pronounce it and it's not accurate. And I wasn't able to talk with this individual. I was just able to correspond with him through emails. I tried to convince the Lord of the, I'll just say, Dumu gods to, among other things, come to earth as rulers of men. He goes on to state, if one were writing a dictionary of Old Tibetan, a possible definition for Mungo Nang would be a poetic term for mankind as a totality, created by the gods and kept in safe pastures by the king. He used the same reference that I use right here. For more information on that, you can go, if you would, you come as Lord of the Black-Headed, an old Tibetan mythic formula. You can go on academia and you'll pull that up and you'll find the whole read. It's a pretty good article that he had on academia. Um, Nathan W. Hill also is a professor of Chinese studies and director of Trinity Center for Asian Studies. Yeah, this is how I had, like I said, I consulted with him in regards to this because I thought it was interesting that what he had stated, and I just wanted to get some backgrounds. Did he find that to be similar to what the Sumerians and the Akkadians had used? And here's our little correspondent. Thank you for your email and these details. I think my proper paper toward the end, I cited discussions of blackheads in Chinese and Tangut, but here are some notes that I didn't publish. The Chinese, the blackheaded in Chinese, the fact that both nearly early Near Eastern and Chinese literature makes use of the epithet blackheaded was pointed out already in Terran. I can't pronounce that. The character, this character, this Asian or Chinese character here, means black-headed, and it's confirmed, and it can be confirmed with references, and it gives a list here. and I was able to do some little background on it, and it was solid. And so I'm gonna hold this for a few seconds. The document generally presents the black-headed as the subjects of the ruler. It is the ruler's duty to rule them benevolently in accordance with divine will. Although we do find here the opposition between gods, rulers, and people, there is no explicit mention that the rulers were sent from heaven. So, anybody want to screen shoot this? You can do your own research, and it should be very beneficial for you. hmm I wanted to have some music playing in the background 'cause I hate that dry space and silence, but I'll try to keep it going as it's going along. So, yeah, anyone that's interested, just freeze it, screen shoot it, play it back. Yeah. So I wanted to put that out there just to add further context to this whole topic as viewed in other societies. All right. So this is corroborated in a reference in Akkadian, okay, Zamu, where it has black, Zamak Kokali, black on the head, a figurative expression for mankind. Yeah. Now this is from the this is a snip from the Assyrian Dictionary of Oriental Institute. The Cod is what it's called. Let me just pull that up. Um, this one here consists of when you check with the ancient textual sources or even ask the professionals, we get essentially the same response. This is in reference or in referring to humanity. In fact, recently on the popular Assyriologist program, Digital Hammurabi, on the topic of how to speak ancient Sumerian with Dr. J. Chrysosmo, Cristomo from the University of Michigan's Middle East Studies and their Middle Eastern Studies Department, I asked him the following Sangiga. Many in the past translated it literally as blackhead, but today many translations is humanity, which is true. So he stated, and this is just what he wrote, what he said. So literally, it is black-headed, but the understanding is that it refers to the people of the land, the citizens of the land, particularly Mesopotamians, whatever that looks like. So the people over whom the gods have care, which for them would have been that smaller group in Mesopotamia, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, or whatever is there. But in theory, encompasses all of humanity. So that's why, yes, both translations are accurate. But if you want to be more specific, it's usually the people under the gods' care, specifically Mesopotamians, the Kalam, the land itself. So thought that was pretty enlightening, and I appreciate him for answering my question. Now, if the Sumerians truly wanted to say to the world that they were black people in a modern context, we would know that they would have just simply stated it in a text. And there's even a verb in the Sumerian shu for, to be reddish brown, like the skin tone of millions of black people. But unfortunately, this word is never used to describe any people. And when you put the nouns dumu, sun, and sang, head, top together, you'll end up with the compound dumu sang, firstborn. Firstborn. That should kind of let you in on something when you see that. So sung is not just necessarily in reference to the head by itself, but also in reference to someone being the first. Earlier, I mentioned how, excuse me, hold 1 second. Earlier, I mentioned how we do not find Sumerian depictions of themselves being black-headed people. Another great place to get a sense of how the Sumerians depicted themselves would be to view the royal standard of Or. It depicts Sumerian aristocracy, noblemen, slaves, average Sumerian workers, soldiers, even women. Nowhere do we find any black people. I always used to joke about this because I was talking to somebody and said these guys look like the old cartoon Mr. Magoo. Ha ha ha! Thought that was funny. Now, to be certain, Sangiga wasn't the only name used to describe the Sumerians. In the University of Pennsylvania's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, in an inscription known as the Letter from Ibizun to Puzur Shulgi, hoping for Ishbi Era's downfall. Instead of using Sangiga to indicate the Sumerian people, the scribes literally used Kiingi in line number 19, and I even put it here where you can see it, reference it, and you can, of course, go to the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature where you'll be able to see it yourself, where he makes the point that to Ishbi Era, who is not of Sumerian origin. Didn't say the blackheads, he said he's not Kiingi, he's not of Sumerian origin. Okay. In one of the last Sumerian texts, under the final king of Sumer, Ibisen, in the sorrowful poem known as the Lament of Urim, the Sumerian people were kidnapped and some killed as the Sumerian civilization was destroyed by the forces of Elam. Trying to read this real quick. In the city, the wife was abandoned, the child was abandoned, possessions were scattered about. The black-headed people were carried off from their strongholds. Its queen, like a bird in fright, departed from her city. Ningal, like a bird in fright, departed from her city. All the treasures accumulated in the land were defiled. In all the storehouses, abandoning in the land fires were kindled. In its ponds, Gibel, the purifier, relentlessly did his work. The good house of the lofty, untouchable mountains, Giishnungal, was utterly devoured by large axes. The people of Shemeshki and Alam, the destroyers, counted its worth as only 30 shekels. They broke up the good old house with pickaxes. They reduced the city to ruin. Case in point, when people see ancient Sumer in that lower that area and you see it in ruin, this took place because in most part from war and a serious drought that lasted 100, I think 100 plus years, I believe. If I have to, I can pull that up as well. Because it not only affected Mesopotamia, it affected ancient Kemet, it affected many areas, even Asia. So anyway, let's go on. Its queen cried, "Alas, my city!" cried, "Alas, my house!" Ningal cried, "Alas, my city!" cried, "Alas, my house!" As for me, the woman, both my city has been destroyed, and my house has been destroyed. O Nana, the shrine Urim has been destroyed and its people have been killed. The Lament of Urim, lines 230 through 249, electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. What I found and what I found to be relevant to this argument on the Sumerians was the belief that the Sumerians could have been, wait, let me go back, that the belief that the Sumerians could not be of a then accepted inferior races, but because there were no discovered icons of the Sumerians, there was a rush via excavations to find these mystery people. The solution to identifying the Sumerians as a people began with French archaeologist Ernest de Sarzeck, and he began exploration of the site in Tello, near Sioux. And in 1877, after having been granted permission by a local tribal leader or tribal leaders, He began work there and over time worked his way into the various settlement mounds that littered the sites. His work uncovered numerous headless statues covered in Sumerian inscriptions. Cuneiform text on the statues revealed that they belonged to a ruler named Gudea of the city of Lagash. Relying on the technology at the time, craniometry determined the most civilized based on skulls closest to that of European skulls or those closest to the Greek Apollo Belvedere. Uh, Now, this is a quote. This page from Joshua Knott and George Gliddon's 1854 Types of Mankind featured three faces: Apollo Belvedere, a black man, and a chimpanzee. Each is paired with a corresponding skull, creating a visual hierarchy to bolster the author's belief in the inferiority of black people. Okay, you can pull this up from Types of Mankind or ethnological researches based on the ancient monuments, paintings, sculptures, and cranial races, and upon their natural, geographical, phonological, and biblical history. That's his writing. And the problem there was there were no heads attached to the sculptured bodies to indicate what race of mankind the Sumerians belonged to because they were unclassified, quote, racially. And this is discovery of the head of Ibi Nubada, the overseer, 2400 BC. This is in the Sumerians collections found at the Temple of Ishtar or Enana. You've pretty much seen this one. I had it up earlier. This quote here is from Paul Collins from a lecture I was watching. Instructions were sent from the Louvre Museum, where a new Oriental Activities Department had been established to receive the statues of Gudea. At all costs, find the heads. This was the most important thing to understand who the Sumerians were in the late 19th century. So by 1903, some heads had been discovered, some attached. So the Sumerians had been defined. They were, according to those discoveries and the beliefs, individuals with round skulls and clean shaven. In this way, according to the racial stereotyping of the time, they could be distinguished from Semitic speakers in Mesopotamia, who, judging by the Assyrian reliefs, were bearded. This, of course, all sounds completely ridiculous today, but at its time was considered the high science. I'm sorry, was considered high science. That's Paul Collins, British Institute of the Study of Iraq, his lecture. You can find that on YouTube. And here's some of those, like, look at this here. You got Sumerian from Lagash statuette. Here's an image of Egyptian from the statue. And then, of course, you got the Assyrian and the Mongol. So by the time the physical anthropologists who had examined the actual Sumerian remains and published the results, the works of Henry Field, T.K. Penniman, L.H.D. Buxton, Arthur Keith, and Mario Caperi I'm sorry, their findings back then was considered cutting edge science. However, today, that method of establishing race with regards to Sumerians, let alone any other people, is considered pseudoscience. Example, uh, Salaf, I forgot the word. So, hold on, let me say it. Salaf, anyway, it's a form of this study of measurements of the skull, philanthropy. I think that's what it is. Anyway, usually the human head, especially medical imaging such as radiography, craniometry, the measurement of the cranium skull is a large subset of Salav kept. I can't- oh my God, I can't even pronounce. I forgot how to pronounce this word. Um, cephal, there it is, there it is, cephalometry, cephalic, hydroencephalic, when you have a huge head. Okay, study of the head. Anyway, cephalometry, cephalometry also has a history in phrenology, which is the study of personality and character, as well as physiognomy, 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 which is the study of facial features. You can pull that on Wikipedia article and they'll give you some background on it. All right. Um, Surgeon and anthropologist Joshua Knott and Egyptologist George Glidden were trained by United States physician Samuel George Morton, the founder of craniometry, the measurement of human skulls, who believed larger skulls meant higher intelligence, with Morton, Knott, and Glidden comprised the American School of Ethnography, and their 1854 text, Types of Mankind, dedicated to Morton, advocated for polygenesis, the idea that various human races had experienced distinct origins. The two also believed that different races came from various zones and that God created different races. So God different races. So they were at the top of the hierarchy in their respective zones. Such theories were key foundations for scientific racism and were increasingly used throughout the late 19th century and early 20th century to assert and codify racial differences in the United States, culture, and justify slavery as well as racist stereotypes and legal policies. This is by Jessica Womack, PhD candidate, Princeton University. There's a sister there. Now, and to this day, some of those very advocates of the Black Sumerian theory will cite the results of this long and abandoned pseudoscience. You can refer to the book by Renoko Rashidi, The African Presence in Early Asia, page 167. Again, I illustrate the point given by Professor Thorklin Jacobson earlier. There was a virtual unanimity about what had shaped early Mesopotamian history. It was race, Sumerians fighting the Semites. Races differed in physique and in character. So cranial measurements, shapes of noses, and even beards or beardless were matters of the moment. I thought that was relevant. The spread of the fallacious Black Sumerian argument can be found in small pockets online on the internet. Search engines with links to books and pages isn't limited to the layperson. A good example is a book called Eden and Sumer on the Niger by Catherine, I cannot pronounce her last name, who does not have a PhD in Assyriology. Nevertheless, she maintains the fallacy that the ancient Sumerians were not only African, but that they created the Egyptian civilization as well as those in the Indus Valley. Quote, as the oldest civilization in the world, Sumer birthed the Egyptian civilization by 3100 BC. For the first king of Egypt was a Sumerian from the land of Nubia, sub Saharan Africa. Sumer's first city was called Kish. Kish was established and ruled by Nimrod, the grandson of Ham. The latter comment regarding Kish, for example, has been debunked years ago. From a publication by the noted scholar and professor Yigal Levin of Ramat Gan University in Israel, Nimrod and the Mighty, King of Kish, King of Sumer and Akkad, July 2002. You see the DOI number there. On pages 351 through 366, he offers some interesting and compelling research work for the identity and origins of the Nimrod and Cush narratives. The biblical Nimrod, then, is not a total counterpart of any one historical character. He is rather a composite Hebrew equivalent of the Sargonic dynasty, the first mighty king to rule after the flood. Later influence modified the legend in the Mesopotamian tradition, adding such details as the hero's name, his territory, and some of his deeds. The most important, his title, King of Kish. The the later editors of the book of Genesis dropped much of the story and mistakenly identified the Mesopotamian Kish with the Hamitic Cush. The Nimrod tradition was thus lost, and later generations saved five remaining verses in the 10th chapter of the book of Genesis. As the oldest civilization in the world, Sumer birthed the Egyptian. Well, I just read that, but the point I was bringing this back up is I wanted to go and get something from the actual grammar or the language of the Sumerians. So, in her reference that the Sumerians, the Sumer's first city was called Kish. Kish was established and ruled by Nimrod, the grandson of Ham. Her comments is textually false, and here's why. In that region, in Sumerian cuneiform, we have three words. You have Kish, you have Cush, and you have Cush too. Now, Kish is defined as totality or completeness, and its attestation can be found in an administrative text dating to the early dynastic 3A period, 2600, 2500 BC. In the catalog source, you can go right here at the early dynastic 3A period, and that source is 2001, 1204. Nothing regarding this can be linked to the biblical Cush nor the toponym Cush. Next is Cush, used before the names of leather, identifying items of like animal hide. For the record, this Cush can be found in numerous inscriptions. And my focus here is how it's being used in conjunction with the word Gigi, which together Kush-Gigi means black skin. Mm. The word for skin here, Kush, is used as a determinative classifier for skin, e.g., skin, leather, body. However, Kush-Gigi describes the black skin of specific animals and not people, Kushites in particular. Certainly, if the Sumerians, in this case the scribes of Kish, wanted to say that they were black skinned people, they would have simply written it in the text, but they didn't. This word combination is only found in a Babylonian tablet and not from a Kish text. The primary publication, ASJ 09 289 291 lines 1 to 2 has the following. Kushgigi, black leather. You can go to the digital corpus of cuneiform lexical text and you can pull that up. And I just have a little piece of it here. Here's the text using the word for skin, which is kush, right here. Kush. So one syllable. Okay. The skin of her buttocks, but she spoke not a word to them. They poured tar in her lap, but she spoke not a word to them. You can find this in the text called the Musid and Nishkisten Anna, the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. You can go to the Auric as well, and you can see here are clear examples of what we just talking about. You can go to the CDLI, um, gazelle skin, skin of a young gazelle, mountain goat, fallow deer skin, stag skin, bison skin, wild sheep skin, chameleon skin, and on and on and on. But you see the point? Kush. That's what it's used there for to identify a skin. In this case, well, what I was leading this down to, you have Kush Gigi, you have black leather, you have Kush Shua, red leather, Kush Gunua, venerated leather, and on and on and on. So that's the point I was trying to make. In some cases, the determinative is pronounced depending on the context. But either way, the point of it is that Kush is being used to identify skin, and it always used in context. And finally, there's the verb Kush to, which means to become tired, fatigued, exhausted, to be out of breath. According to that's also according to John A. Halloran. Inanna, while shutting up the tigi and the adab instruments in their homes, you never grow weary with administrators looking at you. Admirers looking at you. But the point here is becoming wary. And that right there should make you clear. So that's just talking about how she is identified as never being rest or tired. So we have that here, and we see it here in the text. So you can find that in Enki and the World Order, electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. Kush, too, is another word that, although it shares a similar pronunciation as Cush, it too has zero to do with the ancient people of North Africa or people of the Bible. So the person who put that publication about Eden in Niger is totally wrong. Um, I just thought that was interesting that this is a PhD person, Eden in Sumer on the Niger is loaded with bogus claims that are not substantiated nor supported in any Sumerian literature or history. Easily the work of a pseudo archaeologist. That's not surprising considering that the author, who is a PhD professor, cites the top pseudo archaeologist of them all, which is Zechariah Sitchin. Sumer had many cataclysms, but its final destruction took place by 2023 BC. The survivors of the disaster migrated to many parts of the world and founded new cities and kingdoms and thus brought civilization to the entire world. They were the world's first diaspora. Middle Eastern scholar Zechariah Sitchin reveals that the Sumerian refugees were called Munantintu, fugitives from the destruction. Um, Zechariah Sitchin never supported, meaning he never showed any evidence to back that claim up. So she should have did more research into that area. So I'm going to wind it up. This is about ended. Citing Zechariah Sitchin on anything related to Sumerians will take you down a pseudo archaeological rabbit hole referred to sitchiniswrong.com by my late friend Michael Heiser. I can go on and on with this topic. The consensus of Assyriologists, historians, university professors is consistent. There's simply no substantive evidence in support of a Black African Sumerian civilization or ruling class. Some of these theories are outright lies. However, they are protected rights. But when you take the time to analyze and scrutinize these claims, for this tiny minority, you'll discover their lack of real evidence. And in a nutshell, the entire premise of the blackheads being black people is pseudo. This is a carving of Shogi on display at the Cleveland Art Museum. And as I was telling the brother the last time I was on, that this is not to say that there were no Africans or black people in Sumer. It's just that we don't have any documented record of them. There are no illustrations of them. We don't have them depicted as slaves. So that idea just doesn't hold weight. And I just wanted to bring this into the record so that anyone that wanted to get some background on it, where you had some research that was put together, you can access it on this channel. I did it on another channel. So I just wanted to put my research, and I could be wrong. This is like science. It's always changing. There could be some discoveries to come along. There will be some inscriptions that are deciphered or some explained, or some other society that say, oh yeah, here was the Sangiga. Yeah, but as it stands today in 2023, there's no evidence to support the idea. So Garfield, that concludes my presentation, and I will stop sharing. I can close this out, and that's pretty much it. I know I'm kind of long winded. I think I'm going hoarse. I hope you're still there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to come in and ask my brother a question, let me put the link in the chat so people could jump up, and if they want to ask a question, here we go. Put the link in the chat. Let me
Hey,
pin
Garfield,
Yo, what's up, brother?
was that informative?
Extremely informative, bro. Extremely
I just
informative.
wanted to put that out there, man. I just
All
wanted
right.
to help.
Anybody who
That's
wants to
all I
jump
did.
in on the link is at the chat, and you guys could basically do what y'all need to do, man. If y'all got questions, y'all got questions. You know. He gave you the sources from the scholarship, and then you do what you got to do from there. You ain't gotta be rumbling and bumbling with nobody. Jump on and have a conversation and do what y'all need to do.
Well, wait. Okay,
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
ain't got to do none of the foolishness. Yep, none of that foolishness
Yeah,
works.
there's a brother, Tony Apsu. I've seen him in a couple other groups that I'm in. I think he's a pretty good guy. And I don't think that he and I necessarily disagree on anything because I see some of the posts that he puts up regarding the ancient Sumerians.
Hmm.
And I mentioned to him that I was going to be on. That it was on another show, but yeah, maybe if he can jump on, maybe we can build. I think that would be because I don't want him to think that I attack him because sometimes my response is when I, you know, single out what the person says as if I'm going at him, I'm being disrespectful. So it's nothing like that.
Right. Of course. People got to be careful, nobody try to disrespect anybody or anything. We're just trying to deal with things on
I
a
didn't even
level.
got Ngozi in the house.
Hmm. Yep.
Hey, what up? What up, Chuck Morgan? Hey, Garfield, you going in
Brother,
and out, yo? Peace to you, brother Chuck.
always,
Peace.
always.
Somebody says sickle cell is not just in Africa. Yeah, that's obvious, but we
Hey,
know
hey,
sickle cell.
hey,
Yeah.
hey, they don't even know about it. The stranded, first of all, there are three multiple strands, and we can talk about the mutations, but the oldest one that they talk about is the one that developed in Africa. No one's talking about the one in Arabia. No one's talking about the one in Mediterranean Greeks. Talk about the mutation. See, this is the thing. These dudes don't want to be Africans. They want to be something from the Middle East or the Near East, and they keep trying to disrespect the continent. Not saying that everybody's not special, but the Sumerians were not Africans. So I'll
Hmm.
be back.
Right,
All right.
right.
Yeah, man. All right. So nobody wants to jump on outside of Ngozi. Nobody wants to jump on the panel. I mean, we've been on for an hour and 21 minutes. I mean, we don't have to go any longer, man. I think what you put forward is self-explanatory. The slides are there
Yeah,
and everything is
yeah.
there. If anybody
And
wants to
and the,
talk, they could
I'm
jump
sorry.
on and have a
I'm sorry.
conversation.
I'm sorry. No, and also, this is not like some popular topic. It's just periodically I'll see it like on Sarnetta show. I'll see it on different. Someone will pop up, or they'll use that to kind of um, leave the implication that the Sumerians, specifically the Sumerians, were you know what they are by citing a passage from a biblical text. And like I was just trying to show you, just I mean, we can go in multiple directions with this. I mean, all you got to do is just pull up a text from Kish, and then you just find out if there is any mention of such a group of people, or even just the people that are mentioned in the biblical narrative. And I always feel that if you go to the source, you should be able to find some kind of corroborating data to support an argument. And unfortunately, when they talk about Kish and Nimrod, we're just not going to find any individual by that name.
Hmm.
So who's gonna come on?
Nobody wants to come on, man. Everybody's scared, man. Let's just call it a night. It's all good though. I think your slides did enough, bro. We good on that, man. If
Yeah.
there's anybody with
All
any
right.
questions, let me know. We got 4 or 5.
Oh,
We got 7 more minutes. Let's go.
I do. I do want to show. I just want to make point something out. Can I share my screen real fast, real quick?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Want to
sir.
want to
Yes, sir.
want to do something real quick. I just want to hold up and see if I can pull it up. Yeah, right here. What I was going to show is that this to right here. This was initially the part two. Now, like I said, I have this on hold if I need to pull it up. It's pretty extensive, but I kind of keep it as like my what do you call it? My ammo for when if I actually need to pull it up again. Okay,
Hmm.
so yeah, that was all that was.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where did
Yeah,
this
I
go?
didn't see anything pull up for you to share though.
Huh?
You say you were trying to share something?
Oh, did it? Oh, I didn't share it.
Nah. Uh-uh.
Oh, wow. Oh, sorry. Let me see. Okay, there it is. My fault. Yeah, I'm saying that this is actually the part two. But the third one just was like the final installment. But I felt that it was more relevant to the argument that I was trying to bring forward. But this was the complete part two. But because it's kind of goes after certain critics, I didn't want to put it out today. And if necessary, I'll pull it up some other time. I may share with you. And, if you, I don't think I have to pull it up, but anyway, it's loaded with some more information. But that's another story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's what's up. That's what's up. All right. All right. Nobody else. All right, man. So we out of here, man. Don't worry about it, bro. You did a good job. I want to say thank you for being a part of the 20 for 20. It was well worth waiting for. And we
Yeah.
here, man. We here.
Yeah,
We here.
I
All
enjoyed
right.
it. I
Peace
enjoyed
and-
it. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right. Peace and love, family. And by the way, too, we've seen people evolve from their positions. You know what I'm saying? And so we've personally seen that. So hey, it is what it is at this point. All right, my brother.
Yeah,
Peace
man.
and love. And thank you so much, man, for doing this. Peace and
All right,
love.
then.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Talk to you
thank you
soon.
for tuning in also. Peace and love.